Faith is such a small word which embodies so much of the sinister trap that is religion. Faith is bandied about as a wonderful and necessary virtue for the believer, and it is most certainly essential for religious belief, which is otherwise completely devoid of tangible evidence. Faith is a gentle "trust me" of the paedophile as he takes a child's hand offering candy. From his point of view, the child's blind faith is a good thing, and it's exactly what he needs to achieve his objectives. Not so much for the child though. It doesn't know any better. How can somebody offering candy possibly be bad? That's why the Bible tells you that you must teach your children while they are still young, before they are old enough to think for themselves, and the unthinking trust and faith they have in their parents can still be used to plant the seed of belief. This is the Atheism for Beginners channel, and I'm your host, Christian Exenberger. Faith, according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, at the time of writing this is strong belief in the doctrines of religion based on spiritual conviction rather than proof, or complete trust and confidence in someone or something. But I'll get back to this variation a bit later. Religious faith is accepting things without evidence, just because you want to believe or because someone tells you that you should. The person asking you to have faith is asking you to believe something even though they are unwilling or unable to provide evidence. Either case should raise alarm bells. If they are unable to provide evidence, they have no proof and are taking things on faith themselves and are otherwise clueless, and you have no reason to believe anything they tell you. If they are unwilling to provide proof, they are hiding something, and the only reason to hide something is that if the knowledge would hurt their case. This means they are trying to deceive you, and you have no reason to trust them. Anyone asking you to have faith without providing evidence is asking you to believe something they either know nothing about or they are lying to you about. So why would you ever take anything on faith? The churches have spent a lot of effort promoting the virtues of faith, and with good reason. Without the proselytes' willingness to accept things without proof, they are dead in the water, because they don't have a single shred of tangible evidence. Having faith is the opposite of being a skeptic, and is an antonym to the modern buzzword of transparency. Most modern democracies have laws allowing voters to examine the government's use of tax dollars, legislative and judicial processes, and other aspects of government. Without this, rulers could do as they please, because the lack of transparency is the breeding ground for shady dealings and corruption. Governments, in turn, demand transparency from companies so that they can see what profits are being made and ensure that everything is above board. Investors expect transparency from a company in which they might be interested. Without a level of openness, they would be stupid to risk their money. And yet, people invest so much more than just money into religion purely on blind faith. They invest their time, their hopes and dreams, their children, and even their lives on nothing more than empty promises. The second definition of faith is complete trust and confidence in someone or something. This definition doesn't mention proof or lack thereof at all, and as such, it would be valid provided there is evidence to support the faith. People buy shares on faith because of a company's track record of profitable returns. But this isn't blind faith. All they are doing is taking a calculated risk that past performances will continue. In the case of God, there is no track record at all. Everything has been hidden from the beginning. Everything must be taken on blind faith. The Bible is the only evidence that God exists, and the only reason to believe what the Bible says is because God says you should, as the Bible tells us He does. It is a circular reference trap that is indisputable if you have the necessary faith, but if examined from the light of logic, goes nowhere and proves nothing. Faith is what is required when there is no good evidence and when the truth must remain hidden. It is the hallmark of every shady organization and the shady dealings. When things are being done above board, there is no reason to hide, and no faith is required. But then why is it that when it comes to religion, faith is a virtue? If you haven't spotted it yet, it's simply a question of whose perspective you're looking at it from. Gullibility and blind faith are the best possible virtues from the perspective of the person trying to deceive you. Being able to fool you into believing their story is what every con artist, crooked politician, 6-year-old caught with a hand in the cookie jar, and religious organization needs to be able to get away with their underhanded actions. But from the perspective of the mark who's getting conned, blind faith is the worst possible trait to have, and they will continue to be taken for a sucker until they wise up to reality and become a bit more skeptical. But none of that does anything to prove that God doesn't exist, does it? What it does demonstrate, though, is that anyone asking you to have faith is not doing you any favors, and your having it is not a good thing. Most people who tell you to have faith are clueless and are acting out of ignorance. But there are many who do understand the power that your faith gives them, and they know how to manipulate it. Wars have been fought and people have killed each other in the millions on the strength of faith. They have been told to do so by kings, politicians, or religious leaders who have stood bald-faced, claiming to be the spokesman for one god or another, or that God told them to do it. Religious organizations have raked in fortunes, their representatives living in comfort while the common believers scrape by, barely able to make a living while having to foot the bill. Kings and queens claim that their position of power and wealth is ordained by God. The churches back this claim on condition that the king or queen is a loyal supporter and follower of the church. The scriptures back up all these things. God told the Israelites to take the land of Canaan and kill all in it. He told them to destroy the city of Babel. So why should a modern politician's claim to divine inspiration for invading another country be any different? In Leviticus, the Bible says that a tenth of everything must be given to the Levites. So why should a modern church not be able to claim that for its followers too? Moses, King Solomon, King David, and every descendant king in the Bible claimed their right to rule because God ordained it. So why shouldn't modern kings and queens do the same? And all this requires is your blind faith. New religions and splinter groups are constantly being created by some deluded reformer, trying to escape the corruption in the sect that they are splitting away from, or by a charlatan trying to get in on the action. And they are all asking for people to have faith in what they are doing. Religion is the biggest con job ever to have been perpetrated on humanity, and every religion participates in the con to some extent. The clergy and the rulers who take advantage of the situation all fall into one of two categories. They are either gullible dupes like the rest, or they are active participants and perpetrators of the con, and in either case they demand your faith. Please don't take any of what I say on faith. It's just my opinion. Think it through, look at the evidence, and see where the money flows. Thank you for watching, and if you found something interesting, please like, comment, and subscribe.